Hello to all of you nice people who took pity upon me and said, seems like no one's watching this panel. Maybe we'll hang out here at least for a little bit. My name is James Michael. I'm more commonly known as James Michael because on social media I don't want my students finding me. This is Obscure and Odd Villans. I found out I was doing this panel when I was tagged on Instagram that I'm doing this panel. So we did this before at Zapp 2019. It was just a big elaborate way for Doug to propose to his now wife. The hope is at the end of the panel, Doug does that again. Or if anybody else needs to propose to a girlfriend or boyfriend, if you could come over here, I'll make sure at the end of the panel we can get that photo up, and that'll be great. Otherwise, this isn't going to be as eventful. But it's fun. I did this in 2019 after Doug's proposal. And then I did it again at the Garden State Comic Fest one year, and I wasn't asked back, so I assume it went terrible there. And now we are back, and we're supposed to do this at 2020. Then there was this pandemic thing that happened, in case you heard about it. And now we are back 2 years later, and we're doing it again. So we did a new gimmick this time. For those who have been here before, and I don't really think that's a problem, actually. So we're gonna do a new gimmick. I used to just kind of ramble on about the villains and then see where we went. But this time, we're gonna have do it a little bit different. I'm gonna time myself. We're gonna try and get through 20 villains in 20 minutes. So I'm gonna hold myself to a minute of villain. So hopefully I don't ramble on a lot. I'm sure all of you guys are very excited to be here. Sure, the good 90% of you don't know who I am already. I didn't drag you here. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It is family friendly, with the exception of a few villains have a little bit of illegal drug use. But that's okay, they're bad guys. And there's nothing graphic about it. There's a PG presentation. Alright, again, I am James Michael, 20 villains, 20 minutes. I don't have as much hair as that picture in 2018. I now shave my head for the most part. And yeah, sometimes we grow up, but I did coordinate my outfit. It's the same outfit I wore in that picture. So we brought it back. So I guess we're gonna start. Again, these are Obscure Villans. Now, I love comic books, obviously. You might know me from Zapp and Alvin. I used to work at Zapp and Alvin. I may or may not sometimes dress up as Cobra Commander on Free Comic Book Day at Zapp and Alvin. That's definitely not me. So I always liked villains, and a big reason I enjoyed villains is because with superheroes, you kind of have to have a good gimmick. You don't have an interesting superhero. If you have a superhero people can't take seriously, your comic dies. But villains are a different breed, because you can have a villain that stinks, and then the next issue you can be gone forever. So I find oftentimes that writers and artists take chances on villains. So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to look at some of the silliest villains I can find. Most of these guys and gals did not last past one issue. So we're going to just poke a little fun at super villains, but you know, we also love them. So let's get started. So 1 minute on the clock. This thing's going to keep beeping throughout the day to keep me accountable. Hopefully rush this thing along because, yeah, you can see the turnout over here. Steve Shaw was thankful enough to stop on his way to buying a book or a commission. Doug literally pulled him up, and I saw Steve look at the ground, defeated, as he moseyed on over. So let's go. We're going to do our first villain over here, starting now. So one thing I love about comic books is that they can be as blatant as possible. When it comes to movies, when it comes to TV shows, there has to be this degree of realism that they have to abide by. But with comic books, they're just going to tell you exactly what something is. Like Electro, you know, is an electric man, things of that nature. So for our first villain is the Artless Tiger Man. He's exactly what he looks like. The Artless Tiger Man was a German worker, and he was amputated. His arms got amputated in a terrible mechanical accident. After this, he was taught, he was given a diet of books to tell him how to use his legs properly for his arms. Eventually, he went on a one-man attack over all machinery when the Nazis discovered him at this point, and the Nazis said, all right, let's train you to go to America and destroy all of the American machinery. So the armless Tiger Man, a man with no arms, all right, learned to use his feet for all nefarious purposes. As you can see evidenced here, him using a hammer between his toes. If you're asking what's his superpower, there is no superpower. He is an amputee, and he's just good with his feet, and that's really it. So that's the armless Tiger Man. That's villain number 1. Great guy. We're gonna move on to villain number 2. This guy's known as the Beard Hunter. I was a little reluctant to put the Beard Hunter on here because, believe it or not, he is on HBO's Doom Patrol. They actually put this guy in the show. However, the Doom Patrol version decided that this version wasn't good enough, and the comic version's a little better. The Beard Hunter, some background, he was born with a hormone deficiency, and the man simply can't grow a beard. So his entire gimmick is that he is jealous of those who can grow beards, much like myself, and he is now trying to begin a one-man war on facial hair. So he is a serial killer, and he exclusively targets people who have beards, and that's all it is. He is very jealous. Apparently he still lives with his mother, and he has pictures of bodybuilders all over his wall. So there's some kind of latent hostility there that he can read into. Alright, so he is a serial killer, and as you can see, right? Niles Calder, I've come for your beard. Alright, and there he goes. That's him shooting up whatever, and he's going after beard people. So that's the Beard Hunter. In the show, he's a little weirder. In the show, he eats beards to gain their power. But I think this is a little funnier. He's just mad that he can't grow facial hair. So that's the Beard Hunter. Let's go to minute 3 now. This is the Pink Pearl. The Pink Pearl is great. You can see over here wearing her muumuu. Does not give her any superpowers. When listed in powers and ability on Wiki, the Pink Pearl's great weight gives her above average strength and durability. I love when comic book characters do that. They don't really have anything special about them. It's like, hey, they're pretty big, and that makes them strong. And that's great. The Pink Pearl worked at a circus, and the Pink Pearl decided she was going to resort to terrorism. Her main goal was to take over the circus that she worked at, which, in the grand scheme of terrorism, I guess is pretty okay. We can live with circus takeover. But eventually, after taking over the circus, she upped her act, and she targeted both the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of the United States at the same time. She was unsuccessful in that venture. She was a villain of Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight, not known for their great rogues gallery. And you can see over here, Pink Pearl brutalizing this poor lady. All right, and later on, she would be recruited into a few different leagues of villains. She would even be recruited into some kind of pro wrestling villain venture. There she is fighting the Beast, and she would even open a strip club at one point. So the Pink Pearl, while not successful in her assassination of the president, was successful, I guess, in becoming a stand-up businesswoman. So there's the Pink Pearl, believe it or not, a Masters of Evil member at some point in time, showing how far that group's come since Baron Zemo. All right, that's another minute. Let's go on to the next one. This guy over here is Paper Cut. All right, Paper Cut's actually a new villain. Sometimes you think, hey, these villains are all from like the 1950s and 60s when everything was stupid, right? So they're never going to do this again. But Paper Cut is actually from relatively recently. I think he's a New 52 guy. He was a Flash villain. He can control paper and wood. However, the best part about Paper Cut is he can't really control wood. If he uses his powers to manipulate wood directly, like from a tree, Paper Cut gets a nosebleed. So Paper Cut is not at all impressive, but he does make little ninja stars out of little origami, so I guess he's good with basic paper manipulation, but wood gives him trouble. The last time we saw Paper Cut, he was beaten up by Captain Cold in prison. And we haven't seen him since. And Captain Cold already dresses very similarly, so good job, Paper Cut. You're about as useless as me in this panel. All right, next is a fan favorite. All right, this is Snowflame. Last panel, every panel I have to talk about Snowflame. As far as I know, Snowflame is the only cocaine-powered supervillain. All right, he gains his power from cocaine, and when he snorts cocaine, which nobody should do at home, mind you. He gains superhuman strength, speed, immunity to pain, and even pyrokinesis from some reason. And if you are unfortunate enough to touch Snowflame, you will receive a contact high, but not in a good way, right? Snowflame, here's a great panel. This is actually from a comic book. That's Snowflame hulking up, so to speak, with his cocaine. And I have a great quote from Snowflame himself, and I quote directly from the issue, from New Guardians. I am Snowflame. Every cell of my being burns with white, hot ecstasy. Cocaine is my god, and I am the human instrument of its will. He is also based out of Colombia, and apparently cocaine worship is his religion, but his one weakness, very apt, is cocaine addiction. As much as he's strong, it's also his greatest weakness. There's Snowflame. I heard he might have popped up fairly recently. I don't know. I put him in my Obscure Villain panel like 3 years ago. Then I saw these 2021 lists of Obscure Villains. I think they all watched it because there's so many people here last time, this time. You guys gotta get here. There's not a lot of seats available. You're not gonna want to miss this. All right, next one's technically not a comic villain. I cheated on this one. This one, however, is a Spider-Man villain. This is the Swiss Miss. And Swiss Miss only has one single only one single appearance. Swiss Miss appeared on the unfortunate Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark Broadway musical. Now you might know Green Goblin was the primary antagonist of the second incarnation of this Broadway, but Green Goblin recruited the Sinister Six. Now we had Electro, we had Kraven the Hunter, we had Carnage, we had all of the big guys that expected the Sinister Six, but the director of the show decided that people like Mysterio's not good enough. People like Venom would not be good enough. The Scorpion would not be good enough. They had to create their own villain. The Swiss Miss, as you can see here, described as the sharpest knife in the drawer. There's absolutely no background for the Swiss Miss besides she was in the Broadway Sinister Six. The Swiss Miss eventually, oh, there's a bug, that's great. The Swiss Miss eventually meets her end. I forgot to mention Swarm from the Sinister Six in the Broadway. Get away! Sorry. That roach is my people. All right, they know where they belong. Look at this piece of trash. Let me crawl all over you. All right, so anyway, Swiss Miss stabs Electro by accident and they both die. So R.I.P. Swiss Miss. Never seen him again. All right, next one's great. We're gonna go on a Spider-Man binge for a little bit. Here's the Thumper. Now, some villains have really dark origin stories. The Thumper's no different. When the Thumper was just a child, they asked for a yellow pony for their birthday, and they never got it. So the Thumper decided, honestly, to turn to a life of crime. And usually, like any good villain, their origin dictates what they're going to become. So the Thumper decided to dress like Napoleon Bonaparte and don a boxing glove. And that's it. And the criminal acts of the Thumper, where they would walk around and they would find people and they would thump them on the head with their one boxing club, dressed as Napoleon. Not really sure of the connection there, but you can see this dastardly act. You see this poor guy's reading the newspaper. Look at that, the great French hero Napoleon, taking the same bus I do. And then he gets ruthlessly thumped on the head by the Thumper. However, there's a good news, the Thumper is eventually stopped. After their 1 day of terror, Spider-Man physically webs the Thumper to a toy yellow horse, and this subdues the Thumper permanently. Because at last, they finally have that birthday gift that they were so greatly looking for. So the Thumper goes, and that's going to be our next villain. So doing the next minute over here, keeping on with Spider-Man, you can never forget the Funny Bunny. Now, the Funny Bunny also has an extremely dark origin story. Much like, the Punisher, it's hard to read his origins about his family getting killed. Well, the Funny Bunny, back in the day when they were kids, a bully sat on her Easter basket. All right, a bully wearing a neon orange jacket did the terrible deed of sitting on that Easter basket, ruining it, turning the Funny Bunny to a life of crime, and their entire thing would be based around stealing other kids' Easter baskets. So the Funny Bunny, thankfully, was only a problem during Easter. And the Funny Bunny particularly targeted the biggest Easter basket haul in America, and that is the presidential White House Easter egg hunt. All right, so the Funny Bunny tried ruining all the people's Easter baskets. As you can see, this bunny snuck onto the White House lawn and started stealing these children's Easter eggs. Very nefarious, eventually stopped, but definitely someone to keep an eye on. Hopefully going to come up again in the next movie. That would be the best idea. Next up, we're going to move on to X-Men. This guy's Johnny D. Probably, in my opinion, the most respectable of all the bad guys that we have here on the presentation, because he was actually involved in a storyline that wasn't ridiculous or cartoony. Johnny D is a mutant. He was actually one of the few mutants to kind of make it through with his powers after the whole M-Day, House of M nonsense. So Johnny D is a mutant, but some people get cool powers, like Cyclops can shoot laser beams from his eyes, Colossus gets to be super strong with metal. Johnny D has this tentacle creature that just grows on his body, and his mutant power is the tentacle creature. If you were given a piece of skin or a piece of hair from an opponent or whatever, the tentacle creature will eat that piece of hair or skin, and after it eats that piece of hair or skin, it will regurgitate a naked voodoo doll of the person who it ate, and you can therefore do all these terrible things like snapping its neck. So there's Johnny D. He actually has an okay story. He appears in Civil War even, but the ridiculousness of his mutant power is going to get him on our list. Next up, another minute. This guy over here is looking groovy. It kind of reminds me of someone from Eternal Champions for Sega Genesis, if anyone remembers that game. It's not very good enough to play it. This is the Ten-Eyed Man. The Ten-Eyed Man lost his eyesight in an explosion, so obviously he went to the hospital. And for some reason, the hospital decided to link his optic nerves to his fingertips, as opposed to maybe giving him new eyes or doing something reasonable. All his optic nerves are linked to his fingertips, meaning that all 10 fingers now have 10 different eyes on the fingers, allowing him to see better is apparently what it is. I guess it's kind of like Daredevil, but he doesn't really have any superpowers. He just sees well. And here's him duping Batman, right? Batman's like, here's a blind guy. He can't possibly be of any threat. And then he just punches Batman right in the jaw. Which I don't really gives him a strategic advantage. His superpowers is listed as being a Vietnam veteran. All right. So that's the Ten-Eyed Man. New 52 does bring in the Ten-Eyed Men, a tribe of Ten-Eyed Men later. So that's kind of cool. I'm glad he was able to survive. Next villain. That was great. Next villain, we're going to go with another Batman villain, and as you can see over here, if you're going to guess this guy's name, you probably get it in a few, because this is Johnny Karaoke, a Batman villain meant to be taken seriously. He is a Yakuza loan shark, and he leads a team of henchmen known as the Geisha Girls, and he loves to sing karaoke. He has a microphone he carries around, which has a concealed sword cane, which really isn't that big power. He doesn't really have any powers. He doesn't have a lot of fun facts about him either. You can see a picture of him singing over here some karaoke, and he talks weird. Hello, I'm Johnny Karaoke. You are big? There is no explanation for why his syntax is so odd. My understanding is that he is from America. He just works for the Yakuza, and my favorite part is it is specified that he has a degree in business administration from UCLA. So that's Johnny Karaoke. He gets killed, so I don't think we're going to see him again. We're going to keep on the Batman train, though. Now, Bob Kane, the famous creator of Batman, often credited with creating Batman the Joker, but no one ever talks about Bob Kane's greatest creation, which is the dreaded Clubfoot. Right? Clubfoot is a killer. He finds people, he murders them, and he has a clubfoot, also a hook for a hand. So the guy's having a hard time. Apparently this has been very successful for him. And the clubfoot, very impressively, was able to knock out Batman at one point with his clubfoot. He swung around, bombed that Caped Crusader, and Batman was down for the count. Eventually, after you see Harley Storm is dead, vengeance is mine from the Clubfoot. It turns out the clubfoot is killing inheritors of a fortune that he is set to inherit, and he was actually wearing a fake clubfoot so he could frame the one man who can inherit the fortune who actually has a clubfoot. Eventually he is exposed, and he is caught by Batman because with his fake clubfoot, he cannot climb the stairs effectively, and the clubfoot ends up being his undoing, and he has been put in prison. My hope is that he eventually, the Riddler finds him or somebody, or maybe, what's his name? Twilight guy. Ed, what's his name? What's that actor's name? He's a good actor. Robert Pattinson will fight him in the future. Thanks. Alright, let's keep going with Batman villains. This guy, he has two possible names. One's the Pencil, that's not the name. The other name is the Eraser. The Racer's real name is Lenny Fiasco, which I like even more. And the Eraser's whole gimmick is that if you pay him 20% of the proceeds, the Eraser will be able to erase every clue from your crime scene, which is actually a pretty interesting gimmick for a villain. The problem is he looks like a pencil, and that's not so great. He actually was the college classmate of Bruce Wayne, and he was constantly mocked for mistakes he made in class, and he turned to a life of crime when Bruce Wayne took Celia Smith on a date and broke his heart and decided he was going to go crazy. After his crime spree is pretty successful, Bruce Wayne decides to try and catch him by pretending to be a supervillain dressed as an organ grinder. Very impressively, the Pencil is able to remember the scent of Bruce Wayne, so is able to figure out that entire disguise. Eventually, Bruce Wayne's able to defeat him, but as you can see, he's pretty devious. And my favorite aspect about the Pencil is he has sleeping gas in his lead point shoes that can knock out any criminal. So the Pencil probably should be cooler than he actually is. I mean the Eraser, not the Pencil. I already got confused. So that's the Pencil, and our final Batman villain, he's my favorite. Alright? Can anyone guess this guy's name? It's not Joker. That's exactly what his name is, Doug. This is Bootface. I'm gonna be honest, there's not really a lot to say about Bootface. He had a flamethrower and Batman kicked him in the face one time. And the footprint was burned onto his face. Hence the name Bootface. I don't even have a second Google image to show you. He worked for some guy named Terminus, I don't know who that is. And I don't know if he even shows up. I think he's just in one panel and he goes, "I'll Bootface." Then he loses. Yeah, he's got a little bat symbol, does he? Or I don't know. Yeah, actually, yeah, he does. That's Batman's shoe. That's how you know. So anyway, that's Bootface. That's it. No backstory. All right, next up we're gonna move on to Wonder Woman. This is a classic villain. This is the Blue Snowman. The Blue Snowman's great because it's actually not a man at all. It's actually a woman. It's a girl named Bryna Bryland. She is disguised as a blue snowman. Not really sure why. The backstory behind her and her rise to villainy is her father was a great scientist, and he created something called blue snow. It's a special form of precipitation that freezes everything it touches. It's basically Mr. Freeze's gimmick. And before he died, he thought it was going to serve humanity. That's why he made it. I'm not really sure how blue snow was supposed to serve humanity, but that was the gimmick. But eventually his daughter figured, I could use this for a life of crime. So when you're trying to extort money from people, usually, you think of, big businessmen, Elon Musk, things like that. But the Blue Snowman targeted farmers in a rural society and froze all the farmers' crops and said that unless you paid me money every month or whatever, I'm going to ruin all your crop shares with my blue snow, and I won't give you the antidote for it. Eventually Wonder Woman stops the Blue Snowman, but the Blue Snowman has come up very often, most recently in DC Rebirth. So the Blue Snowman is a Golden Age villain that has a lot of staying power, but basically the powers are, not that cool. So let's forsake the Blue Snowman, and I like this guy a lot. All right, first of all, whoever was drawing this guy, I think just phoned it in. They're like, generic latex outfit, here's sludge. This is Ice Cream. Ice Cream only showed up once. Ice Cream is a mutant. Why Ice Cream turned into a villain is that though Ice Cream discovered his mutant ability at an early age, his ability was he can turn into ice cream of any flavor at will. So that's actually the gimmick, which I can suspend my belief for comic books, but who is innately able to change flavors? Like, why should you be born with the ability to turn into Rocky Road? Which happens. He says in a panel, I'm going to turn into Rocky Road. I saw it on Google image search. So he decides he's going to kill the X-Men because his powers are cooler than he is and he's jealous. And he thinks their powers make him look stupid. He infiltrates the Danger Room during this guy could have been on the panel, but he's not a villain. For some reason, the X-Men are training with a mutant known as Obnoxio the Clown. And they can't beat Obnoxio, and Obnoxio is toying around with Ice Cream, and eventually, Charles Xavier, something happened to him, he woke up, gets on Cerebro, and he uses the Danger Room to freeze Ice Cream, or Ice Cream, and Ice Cream's never seen again, probably because I think they were rushed on this one. I don't think, this might even have been John Byrne. I don't know what happened. Alright, this guy I have a grudge with, alright? I don't hate anybody. I hate this guy, alright? This guy is Bullseye, but he's not Bullseye, and I'm gonna start running through this panel. This is Bullseye, okay? This is Bull's Space Eye. He shows up one time in a Nick Fury issue. He's stupid, and I hate him because you're gonna go to comic shops across this country, and they're gonna sell you this issue, and it's gonna be labeled First Bullseye, but they're tricking you. It's not First Bullseye, it's First Bull's Space Eye, and he stinks. Get it? He's done. All right, we're gonna go to the next guy because I think I'm over time. This guy's name is Basad. Get it? Basad. He stabbed a TV monitor one time and he got the ability to travel through TVs. It's not how it works. Anyway, next up is the Weasel. You might know him from Suicide Squad. His actual villainy is more ridiculous than his appearance in Suicide Squad. He is a college professor, and his entire gimmick is he has to kill his fellow colleagues because he's worried he might not get tenure. That is his entire villainy. And when he's caught, he says, all I cared about was safety. That's it. Second to last guy. He's actually not that stupid. This is the second Captain Marvel's evil alternative. He's a decent storyline, but his name's Fred with 2 Ds. All right, thanks, buddy. All right. He's named with Fred with 2 Ds. That's it. That's the joke. And finally, our last person is Dr. Bond. Yeah! Dr. Bond's supervillain origin is that he was in college and he's playing with a band and his friend made a fake guillotine and he accidentally cut off his own hand with the fake guillotine and decided to become a Bell-themed supervillain. And no, this is not a marijuana-themed supervillain. It is a bong as in bong. Alright, he does have quite a lot of appearances. Most notably, he teams up with the Headman to create an intergalactic Bell device that the seismic waves of the bong would destroy the entire world, but he is stopped. Alright, and I believe I am just over time. I went a little bit over 2020. Thank you, people. Some people... Woo! I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the show. Enjoy Zapp Con. And come up for, I think it's Comic Pop next, who has a legitimate social media following. Unlike me, some teacher, they just pulled off from the old employee list to do this. Also, follow me on Twitch. I'm not good and I stream inconsistently. Alright, thank you. Woo! Have a great Zapp Con. And remember the album.